Okay. Can't hear me. Thank you so much for Steve and Charlene. Alhamdulillah. Abu Hassan. All right, now we're together. MashaAllah. Now we're together. Everybody should be able to hear me now and everything. All right, so I'm going to take that to mean that you're ready to go a little further. You know, on this excuse me, on this subject overall, there was a lot I'll have to say that we had to leave on the cutting room floor uh, in terms of so many things that could be said that are truly relevant. Uh, but in a Juma setting, it would just be a little bit too much. So we left quite a bit of it out. Uh, but this gives us the opportunity to go ahead and take a couple of steps further. Now, so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and pick up where we left off. Pick up where we left off yesterday. We ended talking about the left brain, right brain uh, feature. Now, let me say this just for so the left brain, right brain aspect is, we'll use the language. It's a social construct. I call it social construct. That's just language to use for, okay. It's a placeholder for a way of understanding something. A placeholder, meaning that there's something that's really big, really large, really comprehensive, but you can't do a straight narrative on, okay, well, this is what it is. But if you can create this abstract, right? Abstract being, you know, a low resolution, truth holding idea, then that's what you do. And then when you start talking about it, to be more specific, then you break it down. You give it a higher resolution. You give it details. So this is how you understand the left brain, right brain. It's not like purely everything purely happens right brain, everything purely happens left brain. No, you have, by and large, the activity. They use things that are, what are they called? fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, such that when they have the brain, whatever these electrodes or what have you, connected to skull cap or what have you, that read the activity in the brain when you're engaged in whatever particular activity. If you're remembering something, if you are creating, if you're creating whatever, a plan or whatever, so then different parts of the brain lights up. So what happens is the functional magnetic resonance image shows which part of the brain, I'll use the language, which part of the brain is hot during what time. Meaning it shows up different colors. You've seen this and you know this. So it becomes a rule of thumb that is used to say, okay, during these kind of activities, this part of the brain lights up. During these kind of activities, this part of the brain lights up. And so it winds up, so it's really talking about a majority. But most of what the brain does calls for resources around the whole brain. But the major part of a given activity is lit up in the left side, and or in another case, lit up in the right side. Okay. So so left brain, right brain. So don't get locked into the left brain, right brain as though it's absolutely fixed and that's the way that it is. But so therefore, that being true, let's just run down a little bit of the left brain, right brain aspect, right? We ended yesterday speaking about the gradual movement of the society at large, the movement from a right brain orientation to a left brain orientation. I actually I have to find this. Yes, let me share this with you. Boop, boop, boop. All right. So you should see on your screen. I'm sorry, Blog Talk. If you're not there, then of course you're not seeing it. But I do encourage you to get over there because there's a lot of imagery here to help with what I'm trying to explain. So we're talking about the functions of a mature brain. All this is inside of understanding the intellect. So I tell you that it's like on average, I'll use that language, the on average left brain functions are these and right brain functions are these. So we have a piece showing here where the left brain functions generally are analytic thought, logic, language, science, and mathematics. The right brain functions, again, on average, holistic thought, intuition, creativity, art, and music. So that's the left brain, right brain functions in general and in abstract, right? So when we talk about, and we got here by speaking of ulul albab and how that ultimately led us to the brain lobes and labib. We went ulul albab, then to labib, then to brain lobes. And it's a whole nother subject about the sound of words and their connection. So there's a description of all these different locations in the brain: the parietal lobe, where reading comprehension takes place; the occipital lobe, the sensory area for speech; the cerebellum, the medulla oblongata, the pons, the temporal lobe, the motor speech area. We have Broca, and also the sensory speech area of Wernicke. So then you have the frontal lobe itself. And it's interesting that the people who put this together, they identify this under the label of Adam, but it's not a religious site. It's not a religious site, but Adam. So they're just showing you, yeah, we know that the Adam is an intellect. Adam is the foundation of intellect. Adam is the disposition in our makeup to find patterns for our thinking. So they know this. So let's look at a little bit. The frontal lobe. The frontal lobe is one of 5 lobes in your brain. It handles many abilities, including thinking, such as reasoning, judgment, and decision making, learning and recalling information. Its executive functions like attention span and voluntary muscle movements, social understanding such as what you should and shouldn't say or do. So even at that last part, social understanding having to do with the frontal lobe. Then when you think about autism and the like, so the whole idea of the way of the such person's inability to be responsive in a coherent way relative to the environment that they're, social environment that they're in. They don't know how to read and respond to social cues as the general members of the population do. It's a frontal lobe issue as well. Occipital lobe. The occipital lobe is the lobe in the part of your brain located in the back of your head. It processes visual signals sent from your eyes. So The eyes bring information in. It gets to the occipital lobe. And I've heard it said by scientists that 55% of the brain is dedicated to visual, to the visual. So the occipital lobe and its functions take up a very large part of our brain's activities. So the occipital lobe deals with, I won't read them all in detail, but the occipital lobe deals with spatial processing, color processing, distance and depth perception, object and face recognition, and information sharing. That's the occipital lobe. So when people have traumatic brain injuries in certain areas, then these are the types of functions that get lost in absence of that. But I'll say this also, that what the brain has shown in its, quote, plasticity is the ability to replace those functions by drawing on other resources in the brain. It's like it moves that activity to, in large measure, it moves that activity to another part of the brain. And while it may not process or achieve those things as effectively as it did in the, quote unquote, the healthy whole brain situation, but it does adapt to the trauma in such a way where it restores many of those lost abilities. So the parietal lobe is where sensory information regarding touch, pressure, pain, position, vibration, temperature is processed. Spatial processing and spatial, let's go back. Spatial processing and spatial manipulation. This is the ability to understand where you are in three-dimensional space. The brain is doing all this. We show, okay, where am I at? Am I up, down, forward, backward, etc. This is the ability to understand where you are in three-dimensional space, such as how to navigate around in your hometown. This is done by the parietal lobe. Alhamdulillah. Excuse me. The temporal lobe. The temporal lobe is one of the 5 lobes of the brain, and it manages or contributes to several of your most useful abilities, such as object and facial recognition. I read where Brad Pitt has the condition where he does not remember faces. He has a problem remembering faces. And obviously there's a name for that, but I don't know what it is. But its temporal lobe is one of the 5 lobes, and manages or contributes to several of your most useful abilities, such as object and facial recognition, memory storage and recall, language understanding and expression, emotional reactions and processing. Right. So to speak again about the fact that all the activities are not necessarily only happening in one particular part of the brain. So it's like, in order to do object and facial recognition, there are other contributions that's made by other parts of the brain in order to make that object and facial recognition a whole experience, right? So it's not all in the left brain and all in the right brain. Everybody makes a contribution, but one part of the brain is in charge at that given moment, as is the case here with the temporal lobe. It manages or contributes to these areas as well. Okay, that's to be understood. Let's see. Yeah. All right. So I don't know if I want to. Yeah, no, we don't have to go that far. All right. So that's. So that left brain, right brain answer. Okay, so now you have an idea regarding this, regarding all the resources that are involved in, the quote unquote the mind's work. So what we want to go on talking about the issue of this brain or this intellect as it relates to Haada. Okay, so inshallah you have an idea of what the whole brain is and what what it does, etc. Now we want to get specific regarding the brain itself. Let me see. I'll share the notes with you while I talk. All right. So we ended yesterday speaking about there being a movement, basically a movement away from deductive logic to inductive logic. All right. So meaning that this quote unquote right, which is just another way of saying it, this right brain activity is moving into left brain activity. So what does that actually mean? Meaning that we are living in a culture that more favors the products of one side of the brain versus the products of the other side of the brain. We are born more right-brained. You can take that as, you can even apply moral sensibilities to that. We were more right when we were born, right? And here's the other thing: left. When you look up left, if you see on those whatever you call those family crests, like in whatever in European countries and whatever general rule, you have these shields, and then you might have a lion on it, and you might have a sword on it, and you might have whatever, you might even have a dragon on it. It doesn't matter. But you have these slanted bands going through it. So some might slant to right, just like when you right slash, left slash in your typing. So you have these right, and some going, from upper left to lower right, and others going from upper right to lower left. So the lean is the identity of the direction, right? So the left leaning slash, it's called sinister. It's called sinister. And you know how that word sinister is used also. He's a sinister character, right? If he's a sinister character, that means he's an evil character. Well, that is literally the meaning of left, sinister. That's the orientation, sinister. So our birth orientation is right-brained, and our moral orientation is right. And there's the order of rightness, which we mentioned as we continue to talk about the developments of the self, or the levels of the self. The idea is that our soul knows what's right and what's wrong, and so we are born with an orientation towards what is right, but then things go left. Right? We use that language even now. Something going left. So the idea is, so our logic is deductive logic, originally as opposed to inductive logic. But as society has evolved, it has moved more from a right brain deductive logic orientation to a left brain inductive logic orientation. We're going to give you, inshallah, some examples of that. So deductive reasoning. Deductive reasoning starts with general premises and derives specific conclusions. So this is why we can't really talk about this in Jummah. It's just too academic for a Jummah setting. If I was better, maybe I could do it. But deductive reasoning starts with general premises. So you take these things that you believe are true. They are true, fixed, they are established, and then you derive your specific conclusions from that. You say, since it is true that this, then this must also be true. So you start from general premises and you derive specific conclusions. While inductive reasoning involves drawing general conclusions from specific observations or instances. So what inductive reasoning does, it accumulates data point, fact, information, and then draws its conclusions from there. So one is going. I'll put it this way, for a visual perspective. One is going from up to down, and the other is going from down to up. So both of them are useful. Both of them are valuable. But again, they're to be used in reality. They're to be used in conjunction with each other. You don't dismiss one for the other or the other for the one. You have to know how to use both. So what happens is the emphasis changes in the society, and you'll hear it in these comments. The emphasis on empirical evidence. This is what happens when there's a movement from deductive logic to inductive logic. I want us to understand that this way of thinking that becomes the dominant way of thinking, it impacts everything, right? And I do have to bring this to your attention, because I want you to own it as an understanding. I won't show it to you, but I'll read it to you from Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Suleiman. You've heard this from me before, but I'm saying Muslims right now, because even when you think about the artificial intelligence, when you think about Chat GPT and others, it's like, I know that, for some of us, it's on the periphery of your consciousness. It's like, okay, I heard that word. I don't know, what is it? And sometimes you may say to yourself, it's like, man, I ain't got time, man. I don't feel like thinking about those kind of technical, scientific kind of things. I understand, because I'm that way about certain other things, though they are important, right? The politics, whatever, Trump and getting indicted and still running for the presidency and still could possibly be the president even if he gets convicted, right? So it's like, what is that, right? But it's like, no, I don't have time, right? Right now, it's like, is it important? Yeah, it's important. So inshallah, pray somebody's really, really working on that from our perspective, and for us, that and other things, right? Bank collapses that are going on, right? So what's going on? We've had a couple of bank runs, etc. So like we're back to 2008. Is that important? Yeah, that's important. But if you, quote unquote, if you're not, how can you say, I'm going to say driven to, man, I got to work that out. I'm saying, and this is what you should understand, brother and sister. You want to serve your community. You want to serve your community. So you got to ask yourself, what contribution am I making to the community that the community needs? And when I say the community, I mean everybody who you feel identifies in the same language, logic, legacy, history, destiny, etc. Those people. And you say, look, I know everybody don't have time to do this, but look, I'm going to focus on this. And when I focus on this, I want to make sure I'm going to bring it to the table and make sure that my people know about it. Because whether we as individuals focus on a particular thing or not, if that particular thing is important, we're going to have to get with it if we're going to, quote unquote, survive and or benefit from these developments, or we're going to wind up suffering from the developments that are coming by force from other people being so far ahead of us on it that we're back in some kind of chains. Literally, figuratively, etc., by comparison. So I'm just saying, you like, ask yourself, what is it that I'm working on, that I'm giving to? And don't be all over the map. Just say, look, what are you? You can't work on everything. You can't do everything. What is it that you are going to be expert in for the benefit of your community? And you have to make it known that, hey, y'all, I got this. I know this. I understand this. I can contribute this to what we need as a whole. You got to do that. That's how we're working right now. Don't wait for the specific call to you to say, will you do this? No, you listen to the call in your own soul to say, okay, this is what we are going to do. Who's talking? You and your soul. You and your soul are saying, okay, this is what we're going to do. Whatever. However, if people find use in it, people find value in it, praise be to Allah. If they don't, look, I have done what I'm supposed to do to make it known that, look, this is something real. This is something significant. This is something valuable. This is something important for us in our work, because we all have this. If we don't have it explicitly, implicitly, we have this shared understanding of what it is that we're trying to do. Okay, so here's my contribution. Now, if people want to take advantage of it, they take advantage of it. If they don't want to take advantage of it, mashallah, that's on them. You did what you were supposed to do. I'm saying everybody can do this. Don't wait for somebody to knock on your door and give you a phone call, send you an email, say, we need you, like Uncle Sam or something. No, get on it. Do what you're supposed to do. All right. So that being said, I want to say this because I'm going to obviously go back to the deductive, inductive, etc. But I want you to understand what I'm saying against this framework. Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Suleiman, he has this statement in his book in his book Toward an Islamic Theory of International Relations. And without doing a whole lot of the background on it, I'll just read the part that I'm going to say. So what he's speaking to is the history and the separation that happened between the theological and the political sectors, during the Prophet's time. And that kind of political and theological separation, you can find it in nations abroad, in Muslim countries abroad. You'll find that there's a very strong theological body and there's a very strong political body. It's often reflected in the military in that sense. And they often don't cooperate. They don't coordinate. They're actually at odds with each other in some instances in Muslim countries. But that's something that goes all the way back to the assassination of Uthman. It goes all the way back. It was a fissure, a break, a separation that happened. And the different leaderships evolved without the kind of reconciliation and cooperation that these bodies of force and power and knowledge in a Muslim country should have or show. And we still experience that even today. Just go and look at these different Muslim countries and see who's in charge and see who's competing, right? Meaning that, is there a battle inside of that country between two major bodies, at least two major bodies? And look and see, are they theological? Is one side of leadership theological, based on the quote unquote fundamentals of Al-Islam? Let's just put it that way. And the other based on having this secular military political type power. And again, both of these over the people. Like, there's a theological body that wants to be, okay, hey, people, do what we tell you to do. And then you have the secular political military side of it. Hey, people, do what we tell you to do. And then the theological said to the political, secular, military, no, you stop telling people to do that. No, you stop telling people to do that. No, you stop telling people. And so then all the civil war, internecine strife, etc., continues to go on for centuries in the Muslim world. And yes, sure, the West and occupied Palestine, otherwise known as Israel, for an example, yeah, they'll push one side over the other and the other over to the one and keep the strife and division going on between them, so they can never get their feet coordinated and make progress. This is not new. This is what's going on, brothers and sisters. Okay, look. So I'm saying we, with a different legacy, different history, etc., a different destiny. Weak man, you don't have to get wrapped up in it. That thing's been going on for centuries. We can put 1,000 years on some of them, 1,000 years on something. And what you doing, spending the minute that you have to exist, and the opportunity that you have to come into Al-Islam and get the benefits of Al-Islam in the world, in your life, you, that 400-year quote-unquote ex-slave, what you doing spending your time in your life trying to get into that argument that's 1,000 years old and you try, yeah, I'm with them. Okay. And the difference that's going to make is what? Okay. Enough of that. Let's move on. You should understand that. All right. So speaking about that, against that background, he said pitted the religious sector of society against the secular, a concept fundamentally alien to Al-Islam. The very battles that we're talking about, that whole thing is un-Islamic. But where's it going on in the so-called Muslim world, right? This situation developed because the ulama, the Muslim theologians and learned men, were for centuries deeply involved in taqlid, that is blind following, and arid, meaning dry, legalism, thereby providing little leadership. While all this fighting is going on for 1,000 years, who's leading the people? Who's leading the people? No leadership for the people in the destiny or toward the destiny that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has ordered. Their education, he's speaking now, he's being particularly critical of the theological side of it, and he's saying their education lacked the concept of systematic empirical observation. See, this is speaking to the imbalance, balance, the lack of balance in terms of you can be, quote, theology is not our term, for Islamically speaking, but said you can be theological, but if your theology rejects science, that's a problem. There is, I believe, a true statement from Einstein. It says, I may have it left or right, one or the other, but it says science without religion is blind, and religion without science is lame. Science without religion is blind, meaning that it's going to do what it does without any kind of ethical or moral restraints, right? So it will blindly do stuff and break things, which includes people. So science without religion is blind, and religion without science is lame. So you can have your moral, ethical, etc. ideas grounded in moral correctness and all that, but then you don't have any legs to walk on. You don't have any logic to carry that into implementation, right? So religion without science is lame. So we have to have both of those things together. So what Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Sulaiman is saying, this is where the theological leadership of the Muslim world in points in history, especially when look, if Al-Islam, if the Quran and the insights of the Muslim world were what brought about the Renaissance in Europe, then it's like, what happened here? We stopped being the leaders that produce the things that produce new life, Renaissance, that produces new life. Somewhere we fell off in terms of having that proper mix, because the great progress we made is what made the progress for them possible to move them out of the dark ages. So they came out of the dark ages and come into enlightenment, and the Muslims, generally speaking, came out of enlightenment into our dark ages. And these are things that we talked about. I don't know what I did. I'd be teasing y'all if I showed you what I have, but I believe I did do a publication. I'm looking at it. It said The Sleepers of the Cave, the Inception and Misconception and Reconception of Classical Scholarship in Modern Times. Mashallah, make dua for me, inshallah. I don't know. Maybe we'll republish it. This is for me, even I can say this is back in the day, but I think okay, what was going on? Yes, Sarajevo. This was going on when they had the bombing Yugoslavia and the ethnic cleansing of the dictator and butcher Slobodan Milosevic. So this is what we wrote. Why are you saying that? I'm saying that to say that this is what is happening in the world right now. And we can go back even before that, and I do mention it right there, that how Genghis Khan, 1.8 million Muslims. Well, let me go ahead and look at that again. 1.8 million Muslims were slaughtered in Baghdad alone in less than 1 year, 1.8 million. This was before drones and before, atomic bombs or what have you. Genghis Khan, 1.8 million Muslims were slaughtered in Baghdad. They were back to Baghdad in less than a year. And this destruction of human life represented less than 20% of the total killed during the 12th and 13th century. So what I'm saying is that when we're looking at right now, we're looking right now at the consequences of this separation, the consequences of this failure. And I'll go back to the quote. It said, their education, that is, those people that are quote unquote theologically focused and inviting others to this blind following, just do what I say, etc. And this arid legalism and being so bid'ah about whatever, just in this time, thinking that, look, the way that we're going to save ourselves is just do this, right? And so Abdul Hamid, Dr. Suleiman is criticizing and critiquing that. And he says that their education lacked the concept of systematic empirical observation. So there's a point. The point is that it was disconnected from the scientific developments of their time. Okay? The theological side were disconnected from the scientific developments of their time. We're talking centuries ago. Okay, but brother and sister, life is a series of repetitive events linked by a chain of recurrent relations. Life is a series of repetitive events linked by a chain of recurrent relations. So that means what? Everything is fractal, socially speaking. Everything is repeating itself. It's just cyclical. It's repeating itself. And we have to be able to know, okay, so where are we in this cycle? And where am I in this place that we are in this cycle? And what should I be doing under these circumstances? And what is going to happen if I don't do what I should do in these circumstances? I can predictably see myself in the condition that the people who failed, were I to fail at this time, in this place, in that way, I can expect to find myself in the same condition that the people who failed before me, the condition they found themselves in. This is nothing but what the Quran tells us. Go back and look at what happened to the people before. Well, that's what's going to happen to you if you continue down this particular road. So Dr. Abdul Hamid Abu Suleiman is saying their education lacked the concept of systematic empirical observation. So it's like, if we just grant even the theological aspect, is that, yeah, you're very right-brained. Let's put it that way. You're very right-brained, but you better get you some left brain activity going on. Because if you don't get the left brain activity going, then you're going to collapse. And they have already collapsed. So he's speaking from the past tense here, speaking back to what they did or did not do and what were the consequences, which are, this is why we are where we are right now, according to his analysis. So it says they lacked the concept of systematic empirical observation and left them alienated from those specializing in the newly evolving social sciences and their emphasis on application and methods. That's literally telling us, look, you're too right-brained. You need to get some left brain activity going on here, right? And what does our religion? Our religion, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. You know, the connections in our body are, I believe the language is transverse. The leftward activity are controlled from the right side. The rightward activity is controlled from the left side. That's from a brain perspective, right? The leftward activity is controlled by the right side of the brain, and the right side activity is controlled from the left side of the brain. We're just talking about the mechanical orientation, the mechanical behavior of the brain, not the cognitive per se. But it's just that way, right? Images come into our mind, they are backwards and upside down from on the whatever, the optic nerves in the back of our eyes. Okay. So what does our religion tell us? When you make the adhan, what do? Hayya ala salah, you turn to the right. So that's bringing the left side orientation into feature by that action. If I act with this right side, then the left side is the part that's activating, controlling, directing, quote unquote, influenced by or influencing the activity. And the left word, again, the other side, transverse, the other side, right? Hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. So that is our literally our physical body is stimulating both the left side and the right side of our brains, even in the call to prayer. And then when you understand and interpret what's actually being done from a ritual, our ritual. Now I can use this term for us because our rituals are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So a ritual supported social logic, right? We talk about creation supported social logic, scriptural supported social logic. Now I'm telling you, a ritual supported social logic. Our rituals tell us what we should do in society. Our rituals give us our behavioral orientation that we should take in society. Hayya ala salah. So it's speaking to the people on the right, something that you need to do. Hayya ala falah. Speaking to the people on the left, something that you need to do. So again, I'm only going to keep myself on the whole right brain, left brain thing. So there's another case that's embedded in our religion. And so the failure to do that leads to these kinds of consequences. So if you're all right-brained, then what will happen is that you'll become alienated from the newly evolving social sciences and their emphasis on application and methods. That's that left brain. You won't have that. And so Muslims, we can become so you can take recitation of the Quran, memorization of the Quran. You can take that as beautiful as it is, but if you don't see it in advance as something to contribute to the totality of life, and you're not just interested in making sounds, you're not just interested in playing a song, because it's like reading music in many ways, which I can't do at all. But understanding conceptually, it's like, okay, you're playing an instrument, you're looking at the sheet music, and these symbols tell you to do this with your instrument, right? And so that's what the Quran is telling you to do with the instrument of your voice. It's like, okay, do this. So if you're going to make a certain note, sound, or give it a certain pitch, etc., with instrument X, Y, Z, string instrument, wind instrument, what have you, keyboard, then you have to hit it this way, you have to hit it this long, you have to add this and take away that, etc. So every instrument that you're playing is tajweed. I'll put it that way. But that's not for as far as the Quran is concerned. That's not the end of it. When you get that right, that's not the end of it. The end of it is to understand how that relates to the revelation, how that relates to what Allah wants you to understand in and from those words said in that way. Okay. All right. So don't get heavily. Don't only think about getting that. Yeah, you got to get it right. Keep getting it right. But don't think that, okay, when I get that right, I'm done. No, that's just to make it stronger as a resource for revelation. Because when you listen to that revelation and get its meaning and see how that word is emphasized or abbreviated in its expression, it's like, what is it telling me about what the word actually means in the position that it's in that sentence? And how does that relate to the idea that this sentence holds, Al-Qawl, the whole sentence, and then the Kalimaat as a word inside of the whole, right? So just go back to the musical piece. So if there's a concerto or what have you, it's played in a certain way. But then if you leave out one particular whatever, pick from the violin, everybody got to pick that string just this one time this way, bing. But then people say, that ain't important. It's like you from the composer, it's like, no, you're disrespecting the whole composition, because the composer said, no, at this point, do this. Because behind it is a deeper insight, and there's a totality of narrative or story that's being given in this particular concerto, which the deeper thinkers are able to say, oh, you see how it rose up here, but then it went down here, and then it said this at this point, and it said that at this point. Okay, then the composer's message is this, that, and that. Brother and sister, that's what the whole reading of the Quran is. The whole reading, right? There's the implicit and the explicit. There's the seen and the unseen. There's the abstract. There's the concrete. There's the totality. And again, so if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses you to have an orientation, some people are more oriented toward memorization. Some people are more orientated toward recitation. Some people are more oriented toward the inspiration and the revelation of it. But you have to have all of them to get the full message. Okay, that being said, I want us to understand, just be cautious not to be just all right-brained relative to that. And also, the other side of, since I said that, it's like, don't also be only technical with regard to it. So, finishing this quote here, it says, says their education lacked the concept of systematic empirical observation and left them alienated from those specializing in the newly evolving social sciences and their emphasis on application and methods. We really have to be aware of that in this time in society that we're in now. So it's heavily left-sided brain, heavily left brain oriented society. The industry, the technology, the business, the politics, i.e. the governance, etc., is heavily oriented to the left side. Okay, it is what it is. Don't be ignorant of that. Always have as the destiny to bring things back to the balance, right? Ummatun wusta. We are a balanced community. So we don't say, oh, we need to reject that. We need to stay away from that. We need to stay away from that. No, we just need to bring it into balance. We need to take it, use it, that portion of it that will enable us to take benefit from and keep it in balance, and also to do so for the benefit of the society, because we know that the society is harmed by that left-leaning orientation. So we need to pull the society back, but you do that with your strong right side applying to the left side, but bringing the balance and not taking the state of mind where the people who feel your pull or see your pull see you as trying to destroy it. No, you're just trying to put it in right perspective, because it is a blessing. If it's technology that has a value, that has a benefit, that's fine. But if it's going to an extreme and therefore that brings the shar, that brings the harm from it, well, then we have to pull people back from the harm, pull the society back pull the institution back from the harm. That's what we're supposed to do. But you have to have knowledge of the technology that you're trying to mitigate, I'll say. You have to have knowledge of it. You have to have a demonstrable knowledge of it so that the people who are already there can respect your appeal. So you can't just be against it and you don't even know about it. And you can't say, oh, you need to stop doing this. And okay, and you don't understand the details, and you don't understand what will be lost if what you say is to be done. I got to get out of this. So that's the idea. So we don't want to fail in that. So last sentence of Dr. Suleiman's reading, I spent more time with that, and the other thing has been on the screen. Let me go ahead and show you this quote, since I've spent all this time. We're just about over now. Mashallah. So I'm a new share, so you can see the quote and take a screenshot if you like. All right. So you've seen read. I'm down here at the bottom now. So take a screenshot and you can read it yourself. What have you? Where we at? So they were unaware of the repercussions, meaning the consequences They were unaware of the repercussions of the new knowledge and methods on the composition, interaction, and organization of society. Meaning, the failure of those behind us that were the leaders of the Muslim world at the time, when these new things started coming up, right? New emphasis on application and methodology, new social sciences that were developed, new systematic empirical methodology or concepts of observation, right? Concept of systematic empirical observation. It's like you missed that. You missed that, the systematic empirical observation. You missed the new social sciences. You missed the applications and methods, and you were unaware of the repercussions of the new knowledge and methods on these three things: the composition, the interaction, and the organization of society. Brother and sister, you got to ask yourself, is that the case for us right now? Are we educated about the current concepts of systematic empirical observation? Are we in touch with the new social sciences? Are we in touch with the emphasis on application and methods of our time, of what's coming up as technology? Or are we unaware of the repercussions of all of these on the composition of our society, the interaction of our society, the organization of our society? All we have to do is look at our families. If you have children that have grown up in this world, they have grown from 0 to 18 and 0 to 21 in this world right now. How close or how far or how sympathetic or how empathetic are they to the Al-Islam that you are dedicated to? How are they leaning? Are they leaning into this way of life and they're ready to go, they're motivated, they're excited, they want to be a part of it? Or have they been impacted by the new technologies of this world in such a way that what we quote unquote stand for as the generation before them is like irrelevant? Then that means if that is the case, then that means that we have in so many ways fallen into the same failure of the leadership of society that preceded us, and we got to fix that, right? And the fix is this: what their problem was, according to the doctor, their problem was they were unable to envision the potential of this new knowledge harnessed to the values, goals, and overall paradigm of Islam. This is their shortcoming, according to the doctor. And if our case is the same, it is also our shortcoming. And the identification of the shortcoming is also the identification to say a problem recognized is a problem half solved. So if he identified the problem correctly, right? Diagnosis, prognosis, and prescription. So if it's been diagnosed properly, and the prognosis is that, look, if you don't do this, or if you continue to do that, then this is what's going to happen. That's the prognosis, right? Okay, diagnosis, if that's correct, and the prognosis, if that's been given based on that diagnosis, okay, what's the prescription? And I'm saying in his statement, he gives a prescription. It's in the last line. You have to know how to envision the potential of this new knowledge harnessed to the values, goals, and overall paradigm of Islam. And you can even take the last part of that and add to it, extend it for yourself, ourselves. Personally, we need to envision the potential of this new knowledge. I'm talking AI, I'm talking about everything that are tools that are advancing other people, that are benefiting other people. We have to connect with those and harness them to our values, our goals, our overall paradigm as Muslims in this world. That's how we're going to make progress. Failure to do that, then you can just all you do is just turn around, look at the people behind you. That's what you can expect. You can expect. It's like Scrooge and the Christmas Carol, right? Okay, yeah, I'm the ghost of Christmas future, right? This is what you're going to see if you stay where you are. So may Allah guide us, help us, enlighten us, awaken us, motivate us to get on it in the right way. So, mashallah, we're going to close out for this morning. Thank you for spending time with us today. So, this evening from 5 to 7, we're going to continue our Ramadan sessions related to the science of the self. And we're still in Nafs al-Amara, Nafs al-Lawama, Nafs al-Mutma'inna. Inshallah, we'll be able to make some progress on that. You can go back and check the Facebook and YouTube archives for the other segments. We did up to 4. Yesterday was the 4th segment, so today will be the 5th, and we're still inside of the nefs. So it's 5 to 7 Pacific time, and it's only going to be on this right now. If you're with us on the stream, wherever you're getting it from now. That's where it's going to be there. Blog Talk, no Blog Talk, because this time in the mornings, we've used those hours that are available to us in a 24-hour period. So just get to the StreamYard piece, get to Fahim Shoaib Facebook and Fahim Shoaib YouTube when we go live. And so we'll do that. And also we do that on Sunday. Any of you who are on also part of the ACU Institute, we will have our private class on Sunday morning. Those of you who are interested in becoming a member of the Clear Understanding Institute, then you can just go to Clear Understanding .institute. I believe it's .org. Find it. I'm not a member, so find it and be a part of. Beyond that, we have bi-weekly private sessions. And so there will be one for the ACU subscribers on tomorrow, but we will still also do the 5 to 7 Ramadan session tomorrow evening. And last thing, Raleigh Durham Assalam Islamic Center. I'll be joining in person with several others, Imam Dr. Salahuddin Muhammad, Imam Ronald Shaheed, the one who's authoring many books from Imam Muhammad Rahimahullah alayh. Also Imam Oliver Muhammad, the resident Imam there, Imam Salahuddin Muhammad, the son of him, the America's Imam, the publisher of America's Imam. There's a sister, I'm so sorry, I'm not doing justice by her name. Forgive me. But Sister Nadia Ahmed will be there, inshallah. And my other sister, I will correct that. She'll be joining us there. I think I got everybody, and yours truly will be there. And that's going to be on the weekend of the 14th to the 16th in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina. So check in, look for that. Assalam Islamic Center, Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, April 14th to the 16th, inshallah. Allah's peace be on you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.